Madeline, Jess, and Kristen, thank you so much. Welcome to the table today. Now, I know there's probably going to be a presentation, I think, happening, and so we're holding questions till the end. Am I correct on that? No? Did I get the wrong? Okay, I'm confusing my two presentations. All right, so we can stop sharing screens and we'll bring all of us up on stage and we can get started with questions then. All right. For those who don't know, can we define or level set for what the role of a solutions engineer means? Madeline, you were nodding. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. So solution engineers at Esri kind of have, I guess there's like a variety of ways. I think everyone at Esri that has a solution engineer role probably defines it a little bit differently, but kind of talking about like kind of what all of us experience and what all solution engineers do is essentially just we provide technical solutions to our user to our users, to users of Esri technology. We work with users really closely to identify different solutions and then help them actually deploy those solutions in their organization. The solutions are built around our Esri's technology and very specifically around GIS, geographic information systems. And that's kind of like at a very high level, like what we do. We also tend to work with customers. We grow relationships with customers. So it's not just like a one and done kind of a thing. We work with customers and users for years and years and years and really develop relationships with them to fully understand their needs and implement those needs and solutions that we identify. That
I
would be
love
like
that.
my quick pitch. Jess,
Yeah, I think that's great.
Kristen, do you guys
Um,
have anything?
yeah, anything we're leaving out here? Jess, do
Sure.
you want to start us? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. On top of what Madeline said, solution engineers, they kind of bridge that gap between technical and non-technical roles in an organization. There is an art of the possible. Basically, that's what we like to show, the art of the possible with our solutions, to kind of show them what they could be doing and how they can benefit from using the technology. But to be a really good solution engineer, you really have to ask the right tactical questions. You have to understand what it's like to be the users and how it could impact them day to day by using products like Esri technology. And like Madeline said, you build a relationship with them. It may be a small project you work on. It may be a large project you work on. It might be something that is shown at a conference. So presentations, demonstrations, at all scales is what a solution engineer at Esri is. It's kind of how we're trained. And then people take different paths. And for Madeline and I, we've taken the path of presenting at conference plenaries. But we do speak to people who might come and step into the campus and might come visit. And Kristen knows how it's like to manage and lead a team of presenters. So Kristen, and maybe there's a third thing you could share about SEs.
Yeah, and in particular, as with Jess and Madeline, they focus in on that, hitting a broader audience, right? On my side, I'm focusing in on more industry specific solutions. And I think what we're all trying to say is if you're a super nerd and you like problem solving and putting puzzle pieces together with technology and really driving solutions or prototypes to meet an organization's mission, right? So maybe I'm passionate about conservation. Maybe I'm passionate about understanding the agricultural trends and the impact of climate, right? Or water resources, social equity. Every everything has a place, right? It starts with a place, and that's where our common interest is, right? That's what connects us all. And I'll say that that's what drives a solution engineer, right? Is marrying both worlds of business drivers and understanding what the needs are and how to meet those missions that ultimately drive our technology and the solutions.
Oof. I'm loving all of this. Okay. Our next question, I wanted to talk about a moment in your career where you successfully balanced the business requirements with technical solutions. So I think this is huge, right? It's not just about like, hey, what can we do? It's about maintaining that balance of what do they need and what is possible. So would anyone like to start us here? Jess, do you want to start us about like, do you have a moment, I should say, in your career where you successfully balanced these two things?
Yeah, I would say early in my career with Esri, I think within my first year, I was part of an RFP, or request for a proposal. A utility company really looked for a mobile solution for their field engineers. And for those who may not know, a utility field engineer, they basically look like Batman. They carry all this stuff with them day in and day out, and they make sure everything's working, your power, your gas, your water. So they were transitioning from paper and wanted to go digital. Yes, paper is still very much a workflow and process that GIS can help with and still helps with. And we received a list of requirements from them, and it was communication from the Esri sales team that provided this. And so it was really critical that they were able to identify each individual need and communicate it to the solution engineers. So then my team went ahead and created a technical demonstration that addressed each single need. But we also saw places where we thought they could benefit from an additional technical capability. But we wanted to highlight first their, what they wanted, and then what might be on their wish list for the future. So working together, we practiced the demonstration. We got together with the sales team to make sure we're on the same page. And then we showed it to the utility organization. And from what I recall, the organization actually had a checklist in front of them for each vendor that came through to make sure each thing was being met. But on top of that, one thing is to make sure that they can relate to the workflow so that they can envision how they would be using this. Is this going to be another big piece on their utility belt when they go out there? Or is this going to be something that's seamless? And so being able to walk a day in their shoes and walk them through that experience and story is how you can balance the business requirements, and technical solution, and a vision. Fortunately, they did choose Esri at the end of the RFP. And the big reason was because they were able to actually see this happening with our software. And then they were also able to learn about some additional things that they didn't know about or didn't have on their checklist. So for us, it was making sure that we addressed what they wanted first, and then showing them some additional features to help them with their workflows. But really the success was due to the clear communication amongst the utility company, the Esri sales team, the Esri solution engineer team that empowered the understanding to build something really meaningful for them. So that was a good moment first year of my time here.
Well, and I love what you said, like, yeah, the communication aspect is absolutely crucial, but it's also about making sure they're heard, right? Making sure the client is heard, you understand what they actually need, and then bringing your expertise to the table and saying like, hey, I know you asked for these 5 things. These 2 or 3 things in addition to would probably make this a lot better for you, and here's how. Or if we were to add these 2 things, then we actually don't need 3 of the things you asked for. So is that, because I feel like it makes, it's like at anything in sales, you don't sell anything by telling your customer what they need. You sell something by saying, what do you need? This is what, this product fills those needs, and here's how. So I think that's absolutely wonderful. Madeline or Kristen, would you like to weigh in on this?
I think in terms, there's some key things I'll pull on there, what Jess was saying. And really was going back to my first initial thought of, okay, those business drivers that really inform your technical solutions, right? The technical requirements. And ultimately it comes down to that importance of collaboration, adaptability, and strategic thinking. And oftentimes, like, yes, we'll gather what the requirements all are to drive sales, right? To drive user adoption. But it doesn't stop there. I think the best thing about being a solution engineer and being at Esri is, yes, we have to answer the phones, we have to meet the requirements and the needs, but we get to stretch our creative legs. We get to innovate. We can push the technology to the limits, right? I see this data set, and now I may be working with the customer on in terms of utilities, right? Transportation.
Mhm.
But what does that look like 2 years down the road, right? Are you talking to various different audiences? Maybe it's not necessarily understanding the resonating with the internal organization. What about my constituents? So you're always thinking about what is next, and really getting to be creative, and envision that art of the possible.
Mhm. I think that's really, really interesting that you guys, there is such that focus, right? Not only like making sure that the technical aspects are correct, but like, what could we do here? It's not, you're not just saying like, okay, they want, 87 widgets, we give them 87 widgets. I like that it's a little bit more involved there for y'all. Okay, how does Esri and how do y'all within it approach collaborating with different teams to ensure, that alignment between like the business goals, the implementation of the geospatial technology? With when you're working cross-functionally, especially across teams, and you're not necessarily within the tech sphere anymore. How do y'all work with, make those collaborations happen?
I guess about Madeline, I'll start, and then I'll pass the torch over to you. And from my perspective, it may be a little bit different, because ultimately I'm helping guide and coach solution engineers through this process, right? So I get to see different variations of how this is conducted. But if I had to really boil it down into some of the critical aspects or the processes, is, well, first, it goes beyond just the surface level information, and it's multifaceted. And you're really prioritizing communication and flexibility of the technology and the business objectives. So you have to establish up front as a team what your goals are, what your outcomes are. And that's very different than understanding what success looks like. I can meet my goals, but how do I know if this has been successful to a user? Right?
Yeah, the sum of the parts being greater than the whole. I like this. Okay.
Yeah. And I think, and you're seeing a theme, because I think collaboration and communication has come up several different times. But you have to ensure, and I know it's also my job as a team lead or a manager, is establishing an environment where opinions are heard. And it's about building that internal trust and rapport. Can I rely on Jess? Can I rely on Madeline? Is she going to meet her milestones? Is she going to be a part of the bigger team and bring ideas, and also feel welcome to do that, right? And then you start getting into the technology, right? And then it starts all over. You're ensuring you're pulling together the skills, the business, the tech, and then you're asking yourself, well, what could I do better? What can we as a team do better?
Very good.
Madeline,
I'm
what are your thoughts?
loving your like focus on, we keep coming back to communication and trust. And these are all something that is, they're all things that are generally very pejoratively referred to as soft skills, right? Which makes it sound like it's fluff. But let's be real, like the soft skills are what everything else rests on. The soft skills are what you use to buffer when like, hey, this team needs this, but we're only going to be able to produce this. So other than just saying, nah, what do we do? So I love this emphasis on how those soft skills can really carry you and help bridge those gaps between either teams that are not really speaking the same language, or teams that just have not yet worked together, or maybe there was not a history of there being great collaboration. But I love that the focus on communication and then trust is massive here. Madeline, did you want to add on to this?
Yeah, I think I'll just, it's the big point or the big takeaway for me, like with this question, is I think the number one thing that we bring to all of any kind of like collaboration, whether it's internally, like just among our team, or internally teams working with other teams, or teams working like internally working with our users, is starting any project off with a foundation of like respect. And understanding that we have different working styles, we have different communication styles, and understanding those different communication styles and respecting those, you know, those differences, and learning how to work together to, you know, make sure those aren't going to be a barrier down the road, or when we get into like the meat of a project, or, you know, things are getting a little stressful, like just kind of coming back to that baseline respect. I think that's something I've come across like 7 years at Esri. I've never met anyone at Esri that does not, you know, respect my communication style or doesn't respect me as a person. And I think that's really, really important.
Heck yeah.
So that's the only thing I would add.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful and a really good call out, right? Because it's not just about knowing how you best, you know, intake information or how you best like process and work yourself. It's also about, like you said, having the knowledge that other people probably do it differently or might very well do it differently. And the respect for that of, okay, I communicate like this, they communicate like that. There's probably gonna have to be some flexing on both parties to do this. So it's not just, this is how I communicate. If it's not coming in that format, I'm not doing it. Like, I think, yeah, that's a really, really good, like, you know, kind of differentiation there. Jess, I want to go to you for the next question. We only got a couple left, so we're going to try and get to all of them today. There's emerging trends within this field can come at like Mach 11. So how do you stay up to date with trends and with emerging changes in both the business and the tech landscapes? You know, these are two separate areas. How do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question. If I had all the time to be on LinkedIn and search all day, I still wouldn't be up to date on it. But I think that's the first thing to really address is, you know, although the three of us are 3 out of thousands of people at Esri, there are different trends and tech that we're all very in tune with and how to use it. Naturally, you might vibe towards something that you might take your interest, like AI, machine learning. But then, you know, I know Madeline's interest in birds, you know, has her looking at maps at different birds. And so there are so many different ways. But I think for me personally, one of the things that I really rely on is actually talking to our users. I find the most value in understanding and learning not just the challenges, but also the opportunities that come their way. Our business and our technology is really driven by what needs they have and what questions they have and their goals. So while solution engineers can come up with a very innovative thing, it is actually down to the business being driven by the people and the users of the GIS community. So at conferences, we have so much opportunity to talk to them, whether, you know, it's at a booth, whether it's walking by the hallway, or even if it's grabbing a beer with them at the bar after. It's honestly, GIS, the great thing about maps is it's neutral. You could talk about it in any setting. And so just understanding what it is that matter to them and why is how I can stay up to date with emerging business trends. In terms of the technology, you know, there are things that people post all the time on blogs, on LinkedIn. The Esri community page is a public area for people to ask questions. And so being able to hear the different perspectives and opinions and obstacles that people face is one way to kind of stay up to date on some of these things. But I'm sure there's a lot more other ways that Madeline and Kristen, you know, you guys probably add to this.
Madeline, do you want to tell us how you handle this? And as we're talking about this, let's also talk about some of the ways, like if you are staying up to date, how do you then integrate these insights into your role? You know, is this something that y'all kind of put in your back pocket for later use? Or is it like, if you discover something, you want to try and implement it right away?
So I guess when it comes to the field of GIS, it is one where you are like, you have to be a lifelong learner. There's not any other option. Like if this is a field that you are going to be embarking on, or, you know, like a career path that you would like to join, it's you have to be okay with like, okay, I'm going to have to be constantly learning. But with that, I've also, and I think just kind of alluded to this, I think you also have to constantly be teaching. And I think engaging with the community has been like my that's been my like strategy when it comes to staying up to date with the latest technology trends. It's like integrating with the community, but then also and doing that in a way where I am sharing my own knowledge, but then people are also sharing knowledge with me. I think it is like a give and take. I learned this especially last year. I taught for the first time as an adjunct professor, and like teaching, like actually having to teach, I think made me so much more aware of the emerging trends. And then I was able to bring some of what I was literally learning because I was teaching back, like from the classroom back to the office, which was really cool and a very unique experience. But I think it's one of those things where you can integrate, you can learn something new, like some new product or some new trend, and you will try to, I think it's completely dependent on the situation and what you're doing, like how you would start to implement that knowledge into your day-to-day. But the biggest thing to me is you have to be willing to teach and learn in this field.
Yeah, it kind of goes to that idea of like encouraging curiosity and like you said, that lifelong learning, we are gone are the days where continuing education classes were for doctors and lawyers. We're past that point, y'all. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left. Kristen, do you want to weigh in on emerging trends? I don't want to skip you in case you had something you wanted to say.
No, I think Madeline and Jess really covered that, and in terms of where you would get that information. I think the only thing is, how do you implement that? Like I learn about AI and what does that mean in my space, and in particular on the national government side, I'm really paying attention to the policy that's getting put out there. So whether I'm working with the chief data officer, they have to respond to that. So then what is our messaging? So that's our role as SEs too, is taking what we've learned and the training and how do you apply it. So if I'm talking about AI or machine learning, well, what does that mean for or an organization like DOI or USDA, right? Or the NASA and NOAAs of the world. That's really where we start implementing what the solutions look like. What is that, those business drivers?
I think that's really good. Okay, last question we're going to get to. I want to know what kind of changes y'all have seen in DEIB and especially in support of women in tech evolve over the course of your careers, and where do you want to see it go next? Madeline, do you want to start us?
Oh gosh, sure. Okay, so I've been at Esri for 8 years, and I've been in the field for almost 10 years now, which is pretty wild.
Congratulations.
That just hit me. I think that, I mean, just the fact that we're having there's a question in a webinar about this is huge. I think that says, like, 10 years ago, this kind of a question would have been very rare. And I think that in and of itself just shows how far we've come and how many changes how we've really seen diversity, equity, and inclusion evolve over the years. And even adding that B at the end, right? Like belonging. I think that's really, it's like a critical piece. So I don't know if I want to we don't need to go through the whole history of how it's changed, right? But I think it's the thing to me that sticks out is that we need to continue building on the progress that's been made so far. I don't think that we're done by any, in any sense of the word. I think we have a lot of work to do still, but I think that we've come a long way, and we need to keep harness that progress and momentum and keep moving forward using that momentum. And
I like this.
Pass it.
Kristen,
over.
how about you? And then Jess will round out with you.
Yeah, I thought about, if I were asked this question, what would I tell my 23-year-old self or 24-year-old self back when I was coming into the workforce and not knowing what I was getting myself into, right?
Yeah.
And if I looked at myself at 24 and 25 and compared to now, and I'm not going to tell you my age there, but I think the one thing that I struggled with being a woman in STEM is confidence. Having the confidence to speak up and the confidence to know that my opinions matter, right? And I'm smart, right? And I feel that there are women out there that struggle, and not just women, right? I think this is a larger discussion. But and then to where I am now, I feel that I was blessed to find a mentor, right? Find a mentor. And if there isn't an environment where it allows you to flourish, well, then be that change, establish that environment. Everybody should have their opinions feel valued and heard. And I think Madeline hit on that belonging, right? You can have all these diversity, equity, and inclusion metrics and whatnot, but the belonging is what pulls it all together. And I've seen it so done successfully where right now I have women on my team that had just started out in their career, and they're growing. And it's because you just give people the environment to do so. It's a safe environment. You don't have to be masked all the time.
Yeah, I love that. All right, Jess, round us out here. What do you want to see happen in future with DEIB in the workplace and support of women in tech?
Yeah, so Madeline said, harnessing that momentum. I think that's a huge piece is, for us, I'm very happy to see where things have gone today. And what I would really like to see is, even though I've really maybe just experienced this somewhat locally, if we think geographically, since we are a mapping company, I would like to see these workflows embraced around the world. I would like to see a lot more involvement with different countries for the women, for events like this, and even for us at Esri. I think because being a mapping company, we find the most inspiration, globally, and we show that at our events and our conferences. But it's the exposure and mission of the different people, not women working with women, but women working with other people and other companies that contribute, I think, to how we can leverage and basically find out where to go next together. And for us, at least here at Esri, I know maps can address anything, anywhere, for anyone. And since geography really knows no bounds in the digital era, I think we need to take that momentum and keep practicing the diversities of people across the globe. And so I'm really excited to see where it will go next. And I'm sure the women that just joined here, have a lot more to add to this session. But what we have here today has been amazing. And thank you for the opportunity for us to be here.
Thanks to each of you, Jessica, Madeline, and Kristen. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day. Obviously, there was a ton of prep work that went in on this event as well. So thank you all so much for that.